Well, let's get that out of there. When was the last time you were scared? And I'm not talking like the last time you had a nightmare. I'm talking about something deeper than that. Not running up the stairs and having those individual monsters grab at your feet after you turn the lights off. I'm talking about that gut-wrenching, throat-closing, mouth-drying fear like I'm experiencing right now. I'm talking about that fear. When was the last time you felt that? When I was growing up, I'm one of 8 children. My mother is here in the audience today. If you don't mind giving her and my father a round of applause. They managed to raise 8 children, and I think we all turned out beautifully. Of course, me, pretty good too. But when I was growing up, I had a very charismatic older brother and a very, very cute younger sister, and I needed something. So I was going to be the smart one. And I'm also not the most humble one by default. But I was the smart one, and part of that is when you're smart, the one thing you don't want to be is stupid. You don't want to feel stupid, right? And I was afraid of failing my own expectations. I was afraid that I wasn't going to be smart. So I pushed myself, and I pushed myself, and I pushed myself, and I ended up coming to college at a later time than most people. I started college at age 21 at Winona State University before transferring here. And at Winona State University, there was a professor by the name of Theodore Wilson. And he was the anatomy and physiology professor. My very first class, my very first semester, age 21, everyone else is 18. I should have had this in the bag, right? But I was afraid of being stupid, and stupid doesn't feel good. So when I started struggling in that first class, I went to Google. I Googled, I read the books, but I still wasn't getting a concept. I had to go talk to him. I did not want to admit to the professor that I didn't know something. It was horrible. So there I was sitting outside of his office waiting for the previous student to come out of the office, and I was shaking in my boots, and the voices in my head started chanting, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. Here was a professor who knew everything there was to know about anterior and posterior, inferior and superior, all these giant terms that I didn't understand. And I was pretty sure he was going to kick me out on my posterior because I was inferior. But he invited me in. He said, hello, Rebbekah, thank you for coming. He knew my name. He took time out to make sure that my questions were answered and informed me of my very last question he didn't have an answer to. And that was a novel concept to me, that you didn't have answers. Some questions didn't have answers. And from there, we proceeded to talk about undergraduate research and what it meant to do undergraduate research, something I didn't even know existed on a level of an undergraduate course. And that took off. I actually transferred here to University of Wisconsin, River Falls, because I wanted to do research. I wanted to do research, and they had an office just for that. What a wonderful thing, right? And on top of that, there was one particular professor that I really, really wanted to work with, which means I had to go talk to him again, which means I had to get over those voices in my head again. But it really wasn't about the answers. It turned into to be about the questions. You see, questions are an integral part of research. You can't do research without first having a question. And for the longest time, I thought questions meant you didn't know something, so you were stupid. That fear of being stupid was guiding me. But questions are really, really wonderful things. They start not only research off, but they also start off how we improve ourselves, I think. When you want to go do something new, you have to ask yourself, what would it be like if I took that yoga class? Or if I invested my money here? If I put time into this thing? Same with research. We have to say, what would happen if we changed this variable? It's the start of something bigger. It's that first step in the journey. But the first step doesn't get you very far if you don't take the next step, right? Kind of a dead end. And that's where the fear came back, and all those little voices started chanting again. I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this. And I realized something while I was waiting for this giant arrow of courage to just hit me and the fear to melt away and me to be this beautiful, confident, smart person, that it wasn't going to go away. I had to take that next step. And that's when I learned that courage is not the mirror image, the mirror opposite of fear. It's not. Courage is something far, far deeper than that. How many of you know the character Deadpool? By round of applause. Okay. Thankfully, this speech came after the movie was released. But Deadpool is a comic book character, for those of you who don't know, that is very, very mouthy. He doesn't shut up. He continues to talk and talk and talk. But I realize courage is very much like that. When fear is that voice in your head that's talking and talking and talking and telling you, you can't do that, you can't talk up here, you can't talk at a TEDx stage. That's not at your level. Courage is that little voice in your head that comes and chants on the other side and says, well, what's the worst that can happen? Really? Besides, it'll look great on a resume. So using this, by taking that next step and developing that little voice inside of you, you get the next step of your research done. I talked to Dr. Bonilla, and now I'm here, almost graduating with more research experience than I didn't even think was possible when I started. And that's an amazing thing. And there are so many students that have come up to me and said, you know, I wanted to get into research, but I didn't know how. I wanted to talk to that professor, and I tried, but it didn't seem like they were interested. And I think it's a really good time to sit here and just reflect for a second that students do want to ask questions. They do want to have the courage to take the next step. And a lot of times we have to nurture a culture and an environment that encourages that. There's no such thing as a stupid question. I think we've all heard that, you know, if we had a dime, right? But there is such a thing as a question that makes you feel stupid. And that's a good thing. And having the courage to take that next step, developing the little voices to pursue that question to its endpoint, that is in its essence what research is. And one of the reasons why I highly encourage it to so many different students that I surround myself with. And my second point, or my third point actually, sorry, is that you're not alone. When we're doing research, we are always building off of the shoulders of others. Just like when you go out and you take a yoga class, you're building off of all the different experiences in your life that have led up to that point. And it made you make that decision. You're not alone. When I was doing research, there was a point where things went bad. And I'm not talking just kind of bad. Things went very, very bad. I thought I was going to kill my culture, which was all of my project. I didn't know what to do. My professor had been traveling, so he wasn't there. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to turn. Those voices started again. You know, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. Why did you think you could do this? You know, you're not smart enough, Rebbekah. And sitting in a hood not far away was Dr. Lydon here on campus. And through an intricate contraption of tubing and candles and things that shouldn't be near candles, we managed to save it. Somehow. I still don't know how that worked till this day. But by reaching out, by networking out, by admitting I was still scared, I still had questions, I still needed a little bit of help, I was able to save my research and continue on. Networking is essential, and it's something that we get to practice in undergraduate research through our poster presentations, through just having events like this, being encouraged to come to events like this, and it's a very essential part to being human. We are a network of humans. We're not alone. And that's a very comforting thing, I think. So with all of these three heads here, we have questions, we have courage, and we have network. I like to think that they form a cycle. By having a question, that initial question, by taking that first step, by having the courage to pursue it past just taking that first step, by networking out to meet and perceive and to find your answer, you're starting a cycle that then produces another question. And that's where research just sort of cascades onward and onward and onward. And we can take lessons, I think, from research into our personal lives. We all have questions that we want answers to. We all sometimes need a little more Deadpool in our lives, right? We all have people we want to network out with, or that are there for us to network out to. And don't be afraid to ask that hard question. Don't be afraid to go up and initiate a conversation with a professor. Don't be afraid to encourage your students to come up to you. We want to foster, I think, at UWRF, a community that does these things. I am still scared. I'm terrified. I don't know if you can see the shaking from there, but I am terrified up here. I don't like public speaking. I pushed myself to have this spot, this big red dot on my life because of undergraduate research. It's taught me to push myself into the unknown, to pursue that question till its end, to have another question after that. And I can stand up here today and say, I am the stupidest person I know, and I am happy about that. Because when we embrace stupidity as an essence of ourselves, as just who we are, we can't know everything in the universe, we can only know a piece of it, then we're able to admit to ourselves that here's a chance to learn. I am the stupidest person I know. I still have tons and tons and tons of questions. I still have tons and tons of voices in my head saying, I can't do this. I can't do this. What made you think you could do this, Rebbekah? But I also have another one inside of my head saying, you look great in a lab coat. I have a network here now at UWRF because I got in and I put myself out there doing research. I have professors who know me by name and call down the hall and actually are genuinely interested in how my projects are going, how I'm doing as a person. And that's a cycle that I'm going to take with me wherever I go. I'm always going to have questions. Hopefully my job's going to be about answering questions. And this process is going to follow me through of having a question, the courage to pursue it, the network to answer it in, and back down to a question over and over again in my life. I'm the stupidest person I know, and I'm happy to be so, and I hope you guys all pursue an opportunity that makes you feel stupid, because it's at that point that you're able to actually learn. Thank you.